My name's June Furlong. I'm a Liverpudlian. Well, I'm famous, but then I've always been famous, so it doesn't mean much to me, you know. It's just a matter of life. It's my life. And I entered the professional art world when I was 17 years of age, and I officially retired when I was 65, which is the law of the land, but I'm not really retired from art as such, and I still organise exhibitions. And when I was 17, I worked in an advertising agency in central Liverpool, loved that place, and then I did the night class. Of course, these were the academic days when artists really had to draw. I mean, it was part of the whole art training. Art education's changed totally and completely now 2008, but in those days it was the key to the works. It was the man from the bank. It was the ABC of the art world to draw. That's what I was doing. And then when I was about 22, I went off to the London schools, to the Slade, the Royal College, you name it, all of them. I had a job at the Slade. And then, of course, I met a lot of these people who were students then, who have since become the very big time artists, big English artists of today, the internationals, you know, the 8% of the whole art world. And Frank Auerbach was a student, Lucian Freud was a teacher, Francis Bacon was there, and I stayed there for about 8 years. And then when I came, and then they were coming to my house, asking my mother, would June come back to the art college? They couldn't get good models, and the exams were coming up, the art exams, the ATD it was then, had to do that. So I came back, and mother said, they've always been kind to you at Liverpool, come back. So I came back presumably for about 3 months, but then I stayed, family life changed, and I got caught up with everything, and then not long after that, then in the 60s, or just before that, the arrival of John Lennon. So life was very colourful, and it was really pretty good at the art college, and then I stayed there for the rest of my working life. So John Lennon was a student there, and he was fascinated by the fact that I knew all the big names in English art. I mean, these people were only starting out then. I mean, they've still stood the test of time. They're still the internationals now. But John Lennon knew all about who was who, and he used to talk to me for hours. And he used to come here to my house, inviting me to parties, and of course I was never in because I was working. I used to do all the night classes if I wasn't at the art college, which was 3 nights a week, I was down at the Blue Coat Chambers, or down at the universities, or training colleges, you name it. I worked all the time because they all did art classes. And so I'd get a message, there's been a lad here, John Lennon is his name, a very likeable fellow, real Liverpool lad. He's left you a note, he wants to come to a party, things like that. But I never really socialised much with him. But of course he used to see me coming and going to the art college, and then he wanted some fancy dress for some pantomime he was putting on, a hilariously funny pantomime, and he knew I had this stuff, so he came and I lent him all these things like my grandmother's pink corsets and big hats and a big Victorian bathing suit. He thought all this was marvellous, you see. And I always got on extremely well with John Lennon, and I used to look at him and I used to think, where will your talent take you? Where will you go? You'll either hit the bottom or you'll hit the top. There'll be nothing in between for you. And then one day he came in and he said to me, he met this fellow called Epstein. I used to go down at lunchtime. I'd always come to the house for my lunch. It was so near the art college anyway, so I always preferred to come home, have some lunch and fill a flask, get back to the art colleges strictly on time. Those classes were on time. And then he said to me, he'd met this fellow and his name was Epstein. and he said he wants to manage us. And I said to him, well, what have you got to lose? And he said, he cracked up laughing, John Lennon. He said, yeah, that's right, what have we got to lose? I think they'd be playing about 4 hours a night and they'd have about enough money for beans on toast for the 4 of them, you know. And then next day he went down and he said, went to see Epstein at Nems on Whitechapel. And he said, still, cheeky John Lennon, cheeky, you know, do you still want to manage us? And Epstein, I think, was absolutely enthralled by John Lennon personality. Oh, yes, he did. So John Lennon told me, I said to him, well, where's the contract? I'll sign it. So he did. And of course, he didn't realise what was going to happen after that. And he just, he thought it was a bit of a laugh, John Lennon. And then, of course, the rest is history. But I stayed on at the art college until I retired in, what would it be, 1998, I think. 1998. Oh yeah, Stuart Sutcliffe was there. Stuart Sutcliffe was a big pal of John Lennon's, and Stuart was very, very keen on his drawing. John Lennon always had music on his mind, or poetry, or writing songs, you know. I mean, he did art as well. Of course he did art, but I mean, he would have never made the big international world success with his art that he did with his music. So, of course, he was all tied with that, and he never did the sort of set stuff that he was supposed to do at the art college. He was a bit of a rebel, you know. If he didn't like the history of art, he just walked out. If he'd come and go into the life room, he used to come in, conduct things. If he was going to a big cocktail party, all his group were trying to get their drawing rights and say, shut up and sit down and draw. Oh, I'll be back, he'd say to me, I'll be back. I'm going next door to see Paul McCartney, who was at the institute next door. And then he'd come back after the coffee breaks, or he'd come back after lunch. But he always sort of turned up into the art college life room to have a chat, really. And then when he did his drawing, he did his drawing, then he'd come and he'd go and he'd be wandering around or singing songs, you know. But I quite liked him. I never had a crossword with John Lennon. I thought he was all right. Liverpool 8, where I live, is the Georgian area. It went right down at one time, to my grandfather's dismay, but it's all coming back now, and it's all going back into single families, and it's right in the university area, right by Liverpool University. It's walking distance, everything's in walking distance for me, and so I've always been here, and I probably always will stay here.